What's up guys, I'm Breylor Grout. Some people know me as JR. I'm a brown belt at Legion American Jiu Jitsu in sunny San Diego, California. Today I'm gonna break down some Jiu Jitsu tournament strategies, how to approach a tournament as you're going into it, takeaways after the fact, and break down some in-match footage for you guys. So before a match, I like to get my heart rate going pretty good, maybe about an hour before the match. I'll jog around lightly for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then I'll usually stretch out slightly for 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'll get 3 or 4 hard sprints. And after that, I'll jog around to cool down. And by this time, it should be maybe 30 to 45 minutes before the match starts, to which I'll make my way over to the match area and stretch out and be ready to go. So when I go into a jiu-jitsu competition, I have a specific plan of what I want to work. I know my own strengths and I know my own weaknesses. And if the information is available to you, you can also look into your opponent's past matches and know their strengths and weaknesses to maybe see, what parts of your game you can use to capitalize. But that being said, I think there's a famous saying, everyone has a game plan, until you get punched in the face. Luckily in jiu-jitsu, we don't got to worry about that. But in the heat of the moment, when the adrenaline kicks in, you're not thinking as much, so your natural training takes over. It may end up going to your plan, but you sort of have to rely on the hard work that you've put on in the gym to carry through to competition day. So the week leading up to a tournament, the hard work should already be done at this point. Hopefully in the past few weeks, you've been training hard, getting ready for the competition. Nothing you do last minute is really gonna help you. Hopefully you put in the work in before, as I said. The week prior to actual competition, you should taper off, make sure that you don't get any last minute injuries that you bring into the tournament, and also make sure your body is fresh and ready to go at game time. Personally, I like to then take a few days off leading up, and then maybe the day before I'll move around, get my heart rate going so I know my body's ready to go, and then rest up, get ready for the next day, competition day. So if you haven't been working stand-up too much leading up to a tournament, hopefully your guard is good, because that's an easier way to get the jiu-jitsu going rather than stalling out on the feet. So I'd say if your takedown game isn't great, hopefully you have a good guard, in which case it's a great idea to pull guard and start working off on your own terms, on your back. And especially in competitions such as IBJJF, where you don't lose points for pulling guard, but you do gain points if you pull guard, then sweep and end up on top. It's a technical advantage for sure. So it's a very common thing if you go into a tournament and you're rolling, you're wrestling around with the guy, and a minute or two in, you're just breathing heavy and you just feel like you have no cardio. It's pretty crazy actually. That adrenaline dump can help be mitigated by getting a good hard warm up prior to the tournament, where you get your heart rate going and then give yourself enough time to let it come back down so your body's accustomed to that for the day. Then you get into the match and it actually feels a little bit more like a normal jiu-jitsu rolling session inside your gym. Yeah, so if we have a good result in a tournament, that's what we came to do and we're excited. But this doesn't mean, you're the king of the world yet. It's good to get back, try to examine your faults even on the way to victory, to try to improve technically, mentally, and to get ready to win the next one. So for a long time, I would sit to my back and play guard in jiu-jitsu, mainly because my takedown wrestling game wasn't up to par. However, the more I train and the more about advanced jiu-jitsu I learn, I realize that the advantage is definitely to be on top passing, because you have gravity on your side, and with every pass attempt, even if you don't succeed and fail, sort of just brings your opponent's stamina bar down little by little by little. That's something that my coach, Keenan Cornelius, ingrains in us. So I used to enjoy sitting back and playing guard. Nowadays though, I'm trying to stay on top. So my favorite submission personally is the Darce choke. I have long arms, which help lock it in, but it's not necessary to get them. Nowadays, I'm also trying to branch out, work my leg game, you know, leg locks and things like that, but Old Faithful for me is the Darce choke. So dealing with a tough loss, it can affect everyone different. You know, some people get emotional. It might take them a while to get back into the competition scene. For me, I like to break things down as objectively as I can. So I see in my preparation leading up, what went right, what went wrong, day of, how I felt good, what maybe made me feel not so good, did I warm up well enough? And then of course, then there's the technical breakdown where you're able to watch your match back and see areas that you need to improve on in terms of your jiu-jitsu skill set. Way back in the day when I started jiu-jitsu, I did a few competitions and I didn't like them. I didn't see any reason to keep doing them. It wasn't fun. It was nerve-wracking. My results were not the greatest. A few years later, I decided to give it another shot, and then I was able to actually land a submission in a tournament. Before, I had just won on points or lost by points or submission. So once I finally submitted someone in a competition scenario, it sort of made me like it a little bit more. I was like, wow, this is, you know, a little bit more fulfilling than it was. Then I went back, I signed up for another one a month or two later, actually hit a few submissions to get gold, and then I was hooked. So today we're gonna be going over one of my matches from IBJJF San Diego, which was on Mother's Day of this year. Luckily I had my mom out there, so shout out to my mom. So this match was my second one of the day against one of my buddies, Levi, who I've actually rolled with a few times in the gym prior leading up to it, this match. So I had a little idea of his strengths and, you know, maybe what I could catch him with on as a weakness. My game plan going into this tournament was to work my wrestling because me and my team have been working a lot of stand-up and wrestling lately under Justin Flores. Unfortunately, about a week before this tournament, I got really sick and couldn't really get out of bed for a few days. And in the days leading up to the tournament, I was still feeling pretty weak. So rather than pulling out, I just decided I'll go to it and just work my, you know, A1 stuff and see what I could do. So not much wrestling here, as you'll see soon. We start out the match. I sit to guard right off the bat, and I'm pulling Levi in to my guard, and instantly he goes and attacks my leg. So as you can see, I sat to guard, and then he sort of went on some attempt to get my leg, to which rather than playing the leg game, I decided to stand up and come on top and take the points. Because I pull guard, so it's 0-0, I'm on bottom. Then I sweep, because he basically sat back, but I come up, so I still get 2 points for the sweep. And now we're rolling with me on top. So as I'm standing here, he's working a single leg X guard, which I'm trying to throw his legs past, and he's working for leg entanglements. I clear them, and I'm working for passes more from the outside, at which point Levi decides to stand up. So now we're back on the feet in a neutral position. I'm still up by 2 points. He has 0 points. So I'm in the lead here. Now it's a good idea in this tournament format for me to sit back to guard, because if I come up and get a sweep, that's 2 more points for me. So I'm basically at the advantage here. He'll have to pass my guard in order to get 3 points to outscore me. So again, I sat back to my guard, and here I'm now working a knee shield half guard and a scoop grip on his far leg to try to enter some leg entanglements here. One thing I've been working now from this position is, rather than working from the knee shield, I like to work from butterfly half, because as you can see, my leg is sort of in danger here. What Levi can do is sit back on my left leg and attack some leg locks. So rather than playing knee shield, especially if you got lanky legs that are at risk like myself, it's a little bit smarter to play butterfly half. So in hindsight, I would stick that left leg as a butterfly hook. That didn't happen here though. So I'm still working with the knee shield, trying to scoop his far leg and try to get my body weight under his so that I can basically pull him on top of me and have more ability to move his weight around. So the knee scoop worked. I nearly get a knee bar here. Unfortunately, my opponent's very tough and he's able to kick out, at which point I decide to wrestle up. Then I realize, nope, that's not happening. I'm sitting back to my butt, staying up by 2 here.
Can we go back to the knee scoop that you did there?
Yeah.
That's something that I run into in the gym sometimes against bigger guys, where I'm in half guard knee shield and I'm trying to scoop and I feel like they're able to sit back and I can't get much of a scoop going. What did you do there to get underneath him?
Yeah, so at this point, let's see. So here I'm able to gable grip my hands under him. What helped me here is the fact that, so my chest is not under my opponent yet. As you can see, sort of Levi's sitting back and then my chest a little away from him. So pulling him on top of me is gonna be tough because his weight's away from me.
Yeah.
So the best way to make a heavy opponent seem lighter is to directly get under them, unless they're smashing you, in which case it might be tough, but in this case, he's not. So as you can see here, I've got the knee scoop half guard, the knee shield with the scoop grip. And then I sort of shift my hips quickly to sort of get my weight under him and also getting my chest under him. So that helps bring his weight forward where he's basing on his hand. And now when he's posting on his hand, his hips are gonna be a lot lighter. So I've got his center of base off to the side away from me and he's unbalanced in the part of his body I want to attack, which are his legs. And side note, as I mentioned before, I like to work butterfly half now because it keeps my legs safer. Mm-hmm. Also in butterfly half, it's a lot easier to get in to off balance the opponent because you can use your butterfly hook to sort of clamp the inside of their leg and help you move under them a little bit easier.
You want to show us here?
Yeah, so if we're here with the knee scoop, or the knee shield with the scoop grip here, if Dave here is like sitting his butt back and being heavy and away from me and even like trying to keep me away and pushing it on me, it's going to be real hard to pull him on top of me here. What I ended up doing in this match, and it worked, luckily, it's not the most technical way, is I sort of just went in and then I shifted my hips to the right under my opponent there so that I could get under his weight, under his hips here and start attacking legs. But instead, if we were to use the butterfly hook, which we can rotate this way slightly, so rather than having this knee shield here, we can bring this butterfly hook inside, and then with the same scoop grip, now it's going to be a little bit easier to pull his hips out and then more towards me using this foot on the inside. So I have the scoop grip. I'm going to post this foot on the ground and then redirect Dave's weight forward, to which now we can attack our leg locks. So in hindsight, I would have switched to that position, but luckily just the standard knee shield worked in that case. Cool. So again, we scooped his leg. I'm attacking a knee bar here. It could have been a little bit better to transition to a heel hook had I made the choice, but I think his knee line was clear. I can give a quick demonstration of how to do that from a failed knee bar. So say I'm already in the knee bar attack that I got to on my opponent there. So if this knee bar isn't quite working and if it seems like I'm losing his knee line to where he's going to escape, it might be better to instead reach some sort of hand, maybe under his thigh, somewhere wherever you can get a grip to pull the knee line deeper and then face our opponent a little bit more so we can go and collect the far side leg. And then now we're working from our good old saddle position here, where if you're familiar with leg locks, we can do all sorts of things to work and get the heel hook. It's a little bit more surefire of a position, especially in no gi, where it gets slippery. You've got a few more friction points to work with, especially when you get that far leg. So again, I'm on guard now here. I think I'm still just up by 2 points because that knee bar didn't work, and then I pulled back to my guard. So I'm in the lead, so I don't quite have to rush it here, although I always like to get the submission, but I'm sort of letting him work more. He went for a quick hard guard pass attempt, which he almost got there. Probably scored an advantage. Yep, there's the advantage. So let's look back at that really quick. Let's see what went wrong for me. So my opponent's going low on my hips here. So I've got some sort of a half guard, it looks like. Oh, not even a half guard. He sort of jumped past my legs and then just sort of uses his right hand on my left knee to push it by as he's circling his left knee to the inside of my hips to seal the pass. So what I should have done there is probably just gotten a better guard to start. It looks like I was just getting a little bit sloppy trying to recover. But my opponent also did a really good job there at sort of being back and forth where I couldn't establish an actual guard.
Were you thinking you were going to almost stand up there for a second, it looked like, when he was starting to outside pass? Yeah,
so sometimes, especially, okay, that's a good point because in IBJJF and a lot of tournaments, if a guy's going for a guard pass and he passes my guard, he gets 3 points. Whereas if he passes my guard, but then before he solidifies his position and I go up to turtle position, then he doesn't get points for it and it's just an advantage. So that, yeah, I think that might have been going through my mind at some point here. Let's look back at it again. So I was going for a butterfly sweep, as you can tell by that collar tie with the butterfly, but he jumped right past my guard. Here, it looks like I'm starting to come up to one hand and I'm trying to either keep him away and frame to repose guard, or if he really got to nearly my backside, then I'd probably try to stand up and defend from turtle. So he capitalizes and he drops his weight on me, and then I shrimp out. And then again here, I basically repose guard. So yeah, whenever an opponent's nearly about to pass and last minute, you sort of want to turtle. It's risky because you give up your back, and when getting your back taken isn't great, but it can be better than giving up the 3 points sometimes if you're able to work your defense.
When you're competing, are you mentally saying, all right, that's probably an advantage there?
Yeah, so in the competition, I do keep score in my head of what's going on. It's good to know. If you're just getting started in jiu-jitsu, it might be hard to remember all the intricacies of the scoring system, so you might just be out there just scrapping, just going for a submission, you know, but as you do a few tournaments, you learn what the points are, and you're able to keep a little bit of score in your head. So in my head, I'm sure I was thinking, okay, I'm up by 2 points, and he has one advantage. So if somehow he gets 2 points, that would mean that he would end up winning. So we want to know that that's the case for sure.
When you're rolling in the gym, are you also keeping points in your head when you're competition focused?
So leading up to a tournament, maybe if it's a big tournament, especially like for example, ADCC trials in early April, where I'd put in months of work going into it. For weeks before, I'm keeping points in my mind. If the guy passes, I'm trying to turtle. I don't want guys to get points on me. However, I'm not always in that mindset. A lot of times in the rolls in the gym, I like to be a little more exploratory. I might be in top side control and roll over my right shoulder to try to hit a buggy choke from top. It's not advisable in a competition, but you know, we gotta have fun sometimes. So
totally.
I think leading up to a tournament, it's good to keep in mind the points, but it's not always necessary, although there's definitely people out there, you can tell they don't want to give up a sweep because in their mind, you know, no matter when the tournament is, they just don't want to give those points. So here, as my opponent stood up, this is a weird type of position. Don't really know what's going on here. It looks like he's trying to set up a leg lock, but what I try to do then is underhook his near side leg. It's like the setup often comes off of De La Riva, but I sort of skipped the De La Riva step and went straight to K guard, made famous by Lachlan Giles at, you know, ADCC and countless other leg lockers. He heel hooked 3 freaking behemoths out there, so it's effective. Where my right foot would come into his hip, and then I would try to throw my left leg behind his left thigh and lock in a backside 50-50 and go for a leg lock. But my opponent sat down and tried a little quick knee bar attempt here, so I couldn't quite get my left leg over. So instead, I just roll up and come on top. So I use the leg entanglement rather than to get the submission. I threaten a leg lock so that he reacts and defends in a sense by re-attacking my leg in a place where it's not ideal to attack my leg. So I use that to, again, as in the first 10 seconds of the match, come up on top when he tries a little leg lock attempt, and then I get 2 points for the sweep. Mm-hmm. And we'll rewind back here a little bit. So as we can see here, once I came on top, my opponent is trying a double outside ashi leg entanglement, where he's probably going to try to scoop my right leg for an outside heel hook.
Do you feel in danger there at all? Or do you feel pretty comfortable in this position right now?
Unfortunately, outside heel hooks have sort of been a kryptonite of mine in some of my competitions. I've gotten caught there a little bit, so this isn't necessarily risky right here, but it's always in my mind to react quick and defend right away. For my opponent to really capitalize on this, he'd sort of have to post his feet on my hip and push off my hip to elevate my heel. I can go ahead and demonstrate that right now real quick. So if I have double outside ashi on Dave, and my legs are sort of just like dangling here, I can't really scoop his heel, and he can sort of smash my leg down and start smash passing me, and this is going to backfire on me quick. But to make an effective double outside ashi, what you have to do, there's a few different ways, but one of my favorite ways is to sort of pinch your knees together and pinch your feet, and then you can go ahead and then scoop the heel here, to then which, if we were going to actually finish the heel hook, we can shift over here so that we can roll the right direction. So if I scoop the heel here, then we would have to roll with our opponent and then finish once he rolls through. Triangling, some people triangle their legs, some people pinch, and then you can extend your hips into your opponent as you wrench his heel. So since my opponent didn't have this heel exposure on this double outside ashi heel hook attempt, luckily I knew that my leg wasn't quite in danger. There's a few different ways. As I was just demonstrating with Dave, I could smash his left leg more so into his face and work for a smash pass. But rather than that, in this case, I use it to try to take my opponent's back. This is similar to an outside double ashi berimbolo attempt, except I didn't get the cool action of dropping my left knee under his hip to really shift his hips and take his back. But instead of that, my opponent really oversells himself on the attempt to get, maybe a straight ankle or heel hook, and sort of goes flat on his face here. So I capitalize with this to go ahead and take his back. So I can go and demonstrate these two different types of methods of taking the back. One, what happened here, and also what I would have done in hindsight and what would have been a little cooler on the highlight reel. So if my opponent has a double outside ashi where both of his legs are on the outside, and if he's trying to work for leg locks here, as I mentioned before, if he gets his heel exposure, I'm at risk for a heel hook. So I want to keep my heel flat on the ground. What happens in my match here is my opponent really rolls over to his left and sort of is trying to attack my leg, at which case, as he rolls and turtles, I'm keeping my knee outside of his knee line so that my leg's not in danger. And then I can go ahead and work for a seatbelt control and then start taking his back. Another way, which would have been a little bit cooler, is if my opponent's really coming up into this leg lap attack, I can then go ahead and shift his hips with my hand to sort of pick it up and create space to slide my knee under his far hip here, to work for a berimbolo attempt where I can punch this leg down, swing this hook in, and then start taking his back. So berimbolos get you style points, especially in a tournament. It looks good. Unfortunately, this time it was a little bit simpler of a back take, but a back take nonetheless. So we'll rewatch that one more time. So again, my opponent oversells himself on the leg lock attempt, goes flat on his face, to which I clear my knee line, and now I'm working for the seatbelt control.
Now here in a tournament, are you focused on getting your hooks in, or are you focused on getting a position to finish?
Yeah, so I definitely position before submission, always, in training and especially in competitions. And luckily in this case, the best position is one that leads to a submission and gets me the points. So first of all, I'm looking to get the hooks and control the back to look for the rear naked choke finish. As we mentioned before, I like Darce chokes, I like guillotines, so there's also a guillotine opportunity here. But rather than going for the submission first, like I love to do and is in my soul, I sort of set that to the side and I just figured I'll get the points first.
Okay.
So I can demonstrate where the guillotine comes from as well. It's not a very common position, but if Dave is turtled and if I have control of his back, rather than getting the points, if I'm trying to end this, say there's, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds left when work because the guy might eat the choke, but say it's a submission only and you just want to rack up the points or, submission attempts and the guy's good at defending the back. From here, rather than slipping my near side hook in and trying to take his back, I can go ahead and do something like controlling a far wrist and then punching my outside arm up and over so that I can drop in for a very tight arming guillotine. But rather than that, in this case, I sold my soul to the IBJJF point system, and I think I eventually looked for some sort of near side hook, to then which you can take the back in any method of ways. One I've been liking, if I have this near side hook, we can look for a power half from the wrestling, style of grappling, and then which I'm going to compress my opponent's head down and lift his shoulder to help roll him over to get my hook in. So we'll go ahead and take a look at how I ended up taking the back on this one. So I'm taking my time here. I know my opponent's really strong, got a lot of respect for him. He's tough, so I just want to take my time. So, okay, I'm threatening with the near side choke first. This isn't going to get a submission. If I get my hands around his neck, maybe if I'm really strong I could, but I use that to create the opening, to distract his hands, to attack, to block my arm, and then I use that to get my hooks in. So now I've taken my opponent's back. As you can see here, to a newer competitor, they might not understood what happened here, but to a seasoned competitor, it's very obvious. But in the IBJJF's point scoring system and a lot of systems, to get points for the back control, you have to get your hooks inside of their thighs. If you go straight to a body triangle, you won't get points. So for example, if I have Dave's back here, and if I have this seatbelt control, I'm getting 4 points. If I took his back and I didn't do this for 3 seconds and I went straight to a body triangle, I've got great control of Dave and I can really work for submissions here, but they're not going to give me the points for it. You need your hooks in. Now in ADCC, that's different. You can go straight to the body triangle, but in most tournaments, you get your hooks first to get the points and then transition otherwise.
So it's really important to understand the rule set. Any tournament that you're going into.
Yeah. That's a big thing, guys. You need to know what tournament you're doing. Please look into the rules. Please understand what's allowed, what's not. I've seen too many tournaments where guys go in and they said, I didn't know that was a rule, or I didn't know the scoring's this way. And to me, it's sort of insane. I'm like, okay, you're going to this thing, you don't understand the rules? Like, come on. Like, just, put a little effort in. But, not everyone just thinks of doing it. So it's a great idea. Know the rules and the tournament you're going into. Know what's allowed. you don't want to get disqualified for some dumb stuff after you paid this registration fee for this tournament and drove a few hours. So please understand the rules. So here I took my opponent's back. As you can see, I've got my hooks in at this point, and I'm threatening the choke still, which led to the hooks. You can see the referee in the top left-hand corner, now the top of the video. He holds his hand up there, which is giving me 4 points for the back take. You can't see it because it's out of screen. But me as a competitor, I'm looking and waiting for the referee's acknowledgement of the points, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so you're actually watching, eyes on him, making sure he gets you the 4, and then you can transition.
I need to make sure this guy gives me my points. I can't, because if it slips by, somehow he screws up, then at least I could, just... You can't really say anything to the referees in this tournament, but you can be like, bro, come on, I got this freaking back. What are you doing? And that sort of comes back to our former point about knowing the points as the match goes on. The more competitions you do, the easier it is to learn these things. So as the referee raises his hand for 4 points, I then instantly make the switch to body triangle because I've got a little bit longer legs. Body triangle's a little bit more secure of a way, especially for long-legged guys, to maintain the back. So I get my points, I go body triangle. Now I'm threatening the choke. I've got my left arm nearly under his head, or under his neck, sorry, and then I get the choke here. So again, this wasn't it wasn't the best technical rear naked choke out there. I should have had my hand a little bit more behind his head, as I'll demonstrate in a moment, but this was a fast-paced match. I was getting tired. I know my opponent's pretty tired as well, so sometimes when that happens, especially if you get a choke, the tap might come a little bit quicker because, they're exhausted, they got a little bit less maybe oxygen hitting their brain or something. Who knows the scientific reasons, but the tap can come quicker.
Also, if they're down, he knows he's down in points, probably like 8-0 at this point.
Yeah.
He's probably a little bummed out.
Exactly.
It's harder to fight.
Yeah, he's bummed, man, and you realize it's a tough, comeback from here. So anyways, I get the choke in. I sort of have my hand, my right hand on his top of his head, and then I get the sub. Luckily, I squeeze necks a lot. I love Darce chokes and guillotines, so my squeeze is pretty good there. But just to show how I could have done that rear naked choke a little bit better. So I had my left arm under my opponent's neck. It might have even been in a little bit on his chin, which is fine. You can get the tap in a number of ways from here. For the longest time, I would just try to get it under his neck and getting my hand behind my opponent's head here. But after training with some buddies, like my buddy Sloan at Legion, he'll just freaking face crank. I'll be nice, but you can just run it right across the opponent's cheekbone, get the tap. If you have your opponent's chin inside your elbow pit here, and he's trying to dig his chin down to block, you can squeeze right through that, and that won't even be a crank. That'll be a straight choke. But anyways, back to the original point, what happened here, I had my arm under my opponent's neck, and I was trying to go ahead and get my secondary arm behind my opponent's head here, but he was digging his head back, so I just got it on top, which in this case was enough for the squeeze. But had I done it perfectly, I would have cinched this arm, my secondary arm, my right arm right behind his head, and then brought my head right down, and then using my chest to open outwards as I bring my shoulders back to get the tap here. And that was the end of this match. It was a tough match. Luckily, I was able to, use my tactical awareness of the point system, along with obviously the technical elements of the Jiu Jitsu game, to get ahead on points, get a safe lead to pad my route to victory, and then eventually get what everyone's after, the submission. All right, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you, got some value out of the tournament mental breakdown, the technical breakdown, as well as the specific techniques used in that match right there. Please let us know in the comments what you thought of the video, anything else that you want to see, maybe technique breakdowns, more in-competition footage, or more tactics leading up to a tournament. Anything you guys want to see, let us know down below, and yeah, we'll get to it and we'll see you next time.